everyone, and welcome back to Real Reviews, America's favorite movie review show. Am I right?
Yep. You want me to mention Canada? I'm not going to do it.
I don't. My shirt kind of looks like a Canadian flag today.
It sure does.
Of course, my name is Jameson Rabbit. I'm joined by a man who is allergic to artificial flowers, and his name is Mike Roth.
It's, yeah, I'm allergic to the artificial pollen that they put in there so they can make other artificial...
Is that how they make artificial
That's
flowers?
how they do. It's all...
Wow.
It all starts with science and stuff.
Oh, well, then you've got me. You throw science out there.
Woo! I like to make up my beliefs.
Science! Artificial pollen. I like it. All right, so we are into 2017 right now. Even though 2016, we have not yet closed the book on the 2016 movies.
Yeah, most of our movies coming out are still from last year. And actually, we were just debating earlier if one is considered this year or
I hate these wonky release dates where it's like, well, it came out in one theater in some dude's basement on December 31st, so it's 2016. Stop it. But I know I've had people asking me, when are we going to talk about our favorite movies and our least favorite movies of last year?
Yeah.
Coming up in a couple weeks. We have to close the book. There's a couple movies we have to see to finally say we've seen everything from 2016. Silence is coming out soon.
That's around the same time the Oscars announces their nominations.
Right around there, and that is always a prediction show. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We should try to hit it before those nominations come out.
Should we talk about the Oscars at some point? We'll get to it.
Yeah, someday.
So anyways, that will all be coming soon. But for right now, we are going to talk about a few new movies that are on the marquee this week. The first one, starting with you, sir.
No, are we going to do Underworld?
Why not?
Why not? Underworld, this is the fifth movie. Underworld Blood Wars is the fifth movie in the franchise. I'll let everybody know I really have not seen every single one of these movies.
Perfect.
I'm not a fan of the franchise myself. But Kate Beckinsale, she is back at it again as Celine. She is the vampire, kind of hunted by the other vampires because she has killed other head vampires in the past.
That'll get you. That'll get you in trouble.
There's also a Lycan war. Lycans are werewolves, and the Lycans are against the vampires. The vampires are very Christianic.
I've seen Twilight. I know how this works.
It's very... I actually compared a lot to Twilight.
Is that your reference material?
In a way it is, because for some reason I should love these movies. I love horror. I love werewolves are my favorite monsters. Vampires, they're super cool. But for some reason I can't get into this franchise. I'm going to tell you some of the reasons right now.
Please do.
Yeah, some of my reasons. So Kate Beckinsale, she's she is Celine. She's a vampire. She goes through all these setbacks and gets new powers so she could go up against the bad vampire people. She also has to fight some werewolves on the way and warn the vampires of the werewolf war. Either way, this is a story. If you are new to this, I would not suggest jumping into any franchise on the fifth movie.
Except for maybe Star Wars.
So I would not recommend this to anybody who wants to start the Underworld. You start with number one and then work your way up as you enjoy the movies. The problems I have with the Underworld franchise is mainly visuals and dialogue. The dialogue, there's a lot of dialogue. They are all British. It's all very dreary sounding, a lot of melancholy. They got a lot to say, but nothing is really interesting. And visually, it's a complaint I've had with a lot of other movies. They wash out all the color with a super thick blue filter.
That's kind of the Underworld look.
That is the Underworld look, along with all the vampires. They're aristocrats, so of course they have to wear clothing that looks like maybe if Abercrombie and Finch did a bondage line. And you have the Lycans who are all wearing dusters that looks like they maybe have raided John Wayne's closet at one point.
And then you got Kate Beckinsale in her rubber suit.
And all she wears for the past, what, decade? Yeah. I'm not really, I forget when the first one was made, but I'm sure it was like in the late 90s.
Somewhere there.
Yeah, something.
The turn of the century.
Yeah, and really the style of this movie has not changed.
She just left a Prodigy concert.
Yeah, I find the look and the feel and of these kind of movies to be kind of boring. Now the action is good. There is some gore. There is some little surprises and stuff like that. But overall, I'm not really fond of the movie at all. It feels like a video game, where people power up in order to beat the bad guy at the end. But obviously this is not a movie you would jump into if you are new to the franchise. If you've liked all the other Underworlds, I hear this is a good Underworld.
Okay.
Not the best, but it's good if you like the other Underworlds. If you've never liked the Underworld like me, why are you going to this in the first place? I don't know.
I'm asking you the same thing. And then I will also ask you, what did you give this movie?
I gave this movie a 2, and the reason why I went is so I could review it for all you fine folk out there.
Boy.
Yeah.
This man taking shots.
Just
taking one for the team,
and
even
also
when he doesn't want to.
I have a buddy who loves this series, and he says Underworld to me is like Resident Evil to you. I like the Resident Evil series.
That's coming out soon too. We got a final Resident Evil coming in a couple weeks.
I'm a fan of Resident Evil. He is not.
We'll get into that in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that. All right, the next movie we have on the marquee is a movie that I saw. Hey, finally got one in. Didn't get to see Underworld. A Monster Calls. Monster Calls from director J.A. Bayona is about a young man named Connor. Connor is bullied at school pretty relentlessly. He lives at home with his mom. His mom, played by Felicity Jones, is dying of cancer, we're assuming. They don't really say.
The loss of hair.
I mean,
and
everything
like
seems
that.
like she's going through chemo. You're seeing things and are told things through his perspective, as being talked to as a child. And so he's dealing with this. He's dealing with his mom. He's dealing with the bullies at school. He's dealing with just being a kid and everything that rolls into that. And a monster from the dark shows up. A monster voiced by Liam Neeson shows up. This monster is old as time, we find out. This thing has been around for a while. It is a giant yew tree.
Yeah, if anybody's familiar with Lord of the Rings series, it's
like
an
Ent.
Ent.
Yeah. And this monster comes to him, and one of the first things that's kind of striking is that Connor is unafraid of this monster. Like, he stands there and tells him, like, I don't have time for you. Either you help me or get lost, dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this kid, I mean, that's getting bullied relentlessly, is not afraid of this monster. And the monster tells Connor, I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And then when I'm done, you're going to tell me the 4th. And this 4th is going to be your truth. And it may be your nightmare. But we're going to get to the truth of what you really want in your life, what you are hiding from everyone. And it seems really an odd intro to a story of this monster that just shows up, this huge tree. And he starts telling these stories. And one of the things that is magnificent about this movie is the animation in these stories. He starts telling these stories that are like riddles to young Connor. And the first one is all in watercolors, and it is gorgeous. I just wanted to stay in that movie.
And the way it's lit too, in the background with the swirling inks and stuff like that,
the
just
inks form
amazing.
from one picture to the next, and it just looks so gorgeous. Like, I would watch an entire movie of this story as he talks about, when he was first born as a tree, basically the first thing he did.
I was a little saddened because this happens when the tree is telling the stories, and the third story is in the real world. I was a little disappointed I was done seeing the animation.
Right, because the second story we get to, it's almost like, kind of like Kubo was, in a way, in that kind of style almost, like cutouts moving along, and I'm like, I like this a lot too.
Yeah.
This is really good, this is intriguing, and then it's gone, and I wanted more of that. And it's you have Sigourney Weaver shows up as his grandma. She is there to help care for Felicity Jones, her daughter. He doesn't want her around. They have issues. They do not get along.
Yeah.
He's asking the monster to get rid of grandma for me. Look, if you want to help me, fine, get rid of my grandma. He has a really tumultuous relationship with his dad, who comes back to visit for a short time, and there's obviously a lot of hurt in there.
This kid's life is tragic. I mean, his grandma means well, but this movie also, not everybody is for him. His grandmother is also grieving. This is her child who is dying. So even though they don't concentrate on her, you can see Sigourney Weaver act out her pain that she's trying to repress to stay strong for the family. But she is hurting just as much as her grandchild.
And she understands that he is hurting, and that some of the things that he does in this movie, there's a reason for. Or there isn't a reason, but it's okay to not have a reason. And that kind of parallels some of the stories that the monster is telling him, where not everyone is a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah, and I love that.
And that's the parallel that he works through, is that, you know, his stories are challenging Connor's morals about what's good and what's bad. What would you do?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, think about it. This is what really happens. This is what, and so it does challenge him, like, not everything's black and white. Not everything's good and evil. There's reasons why things happen, and you need to find everyone's side of it.
And that is one of the things I absolutely love, and I think this is a brilliant movie for that, because that is real life. Everybody hears one side of one story.
Makes their decision.
But once you go back and you're like, okay, that's a story that you've listened to, and you could have strong opinions, but now let's take the filter off and let's see it for what it is. And I love that for this part of this movie. It's so insightful, powerful, and important at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I love how the monster speaks to him in these riddles and challenges Connor to kind of face things that he doesn't want to accept. I mean, he keeps referencing this fourth story you're going to tell me. And it's a powerful moment when he is working Connor to tell me the story. Tell me what your truth is. Tell me something you don't want to accept yourself about yourself.
Yep.
And it's a powerful moment. And it's an interesting story of, you know, also playing on, like, not all monsters are bad. Sometimes a monster might help you out. The monster within you might be what you need to help you through a situation.
I felt really bad for him because he couldn't even get away from, he has a terrible life. It's not just his, and he also had a situation with his dad. His dad lives over in America. He's already started a new family. He doesn't have enough money to bring his son or enough space to keep him. And it's like, okay, so you're dealing with that tragedy too. And when you have that one escape, when you could fall asleep, you don't get to escape. You have to deal with yourself 24 hours. And to let everybody know, there is not really a happy moment in this film.
So in one way, it is a rather depressing movie, right? In the subject matter and everything goes on. But I also saw this movie as a movie of great hope, because there is this discovery of who Connor is. He finally gets to step outside of himself for a while and really discover, once he finds out what his truth is. I think it is a moment of great hope for him as a person.
I got a little bit of that too. When he's able to realize his truth, which is also extremely depressing.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
inspiring at the same time.
Yes, yes.
But there is waterworks in this, and there really isn't much contrast to it. There's no happy moments that you could say, oh, that brought up the mood a little bit, so now I could feel
even
sad
moments
again.
that I thought were going to be a little bit. There's some moments between he and his bully in the middle of the movie, where I'm like, oh, this might be something, and then, oh, nope. This is not going to work out like I thought.
Not going to feel good.
Yeah.
But it's done in a beautiful way. If you watch this movie and you're like, or if you hear about this movie and you're like, I'm not going to see this because it will make me sad, you are actually really missing out, because this movie is extremely beautiful. The animations are beautiful. The messages are beautiful. The stories, how they're told, is absolutely beautiful. It's very heavy-hitting, though.
Yeah. And Liam Neeson is really good as the voice. I liked his voice in it. It fit perfectly with that.
And not once did he mention that his daughter was kidnapped.
He did take him a couple of times. But, ultimately, well, I guess I'll give my score first. Or no, you give your score first.
All right. I gave it a 4.5. I would have pushed this up to 5, but I was missing some of the contrast. I did want a little bit of highs with my lows. And there are inspiring points and stuff like that, but if it just had a little bit more contrast to it, I would have enjoyed it up to a 5. Otherwise, it should be a 5. If that's the only reason why you're going to go, please go see this movie. It is very intelligent. It's very beautiful.
It's a great movie. Yeah, I give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's a horrible way to describe this movie.
I love crying. And
I kind of wish, real quick, I kind of wish you told me what your crowd was like when you went and saw it, and then when I went and saw it, I was the only person in the theater. I wish I would have had a crowd that reacted along with that movie, because I felt very isolated watching the movie, and I wish I would have had more people.
Yeah, in my theater...
Normally, I'm very happy to walk into an empty theater. This was one of the few times where I was hoping for...
I thought it was important to be with other people in this. everybody you could have chalked the experience up to allergies for a while.
Sure.
You heard a lot
They
of
released
sniffling
some of that
and stuff.
fake pollen into the air.
But there was a point where there was a couple of people who were audibly, loudly, and it sounds funny now, but when you're in the theater, you know, you're
Were
feeling
one of those
bad.
people you?
Oh, I did come close. I was
misty.
getting a little misty. I was not
Got
to
the
the point
vapors.
where I was letting out exhaling sorrow through my vocal cords, but
Mike got the vapors.
it is a powerful
All right.
movie.
Let's move on to the next movie we have on the marquee, sir. What do you have?
We have Hidden Figures. This is based on true events that happened during our space race. We're trying to get up to space, our first astronauts, but there is a thing that we have to do first, and that is science. There are 3 women during a very segregated United States. They're African American, and it's basically their 3 stories, all while working in the same place. We have one story by Olivia, about Dorothy Vaughan, who's played by Octavia Spencer. Her story is she is in charge of the computers. Now everybody thinks things that you have on your desk. Back then, they didn't have things that were on desk. Computers were actually people who computed numbers. She was in charge of the all-black computers, and she wanted to be a supervisor, but she could not get that title, even though she was doing everything that a supervisor would do. She ends up self-training herself on how to use a computer. So when NASA did get this huge IBM, and it's huge.
It's the size of a room.
It's the size of a big room.
Well.
She self-teaches herself so she could get herself and her team in there and achieve her supervisory goals. We also have another story about Mary Jackson, who is played by Janelle Monáe, who is an extremely intelligent woman who wants to be an engineer. She can do all the work, but they keep on raising that bar so she can never get that job. And she has to go to a school in order to get this education so that she could get that engineering job. But the problem is, we are in a segregated United States, and this is an all-white school. The only class she needs is in an all-white school. So it tells our story of her struggle trying to get that education in a segregated southern state.
Right.
We also have a third story about Katherine G. Johnson, who is a child prodigy. She could crank numbers like no one can believe. She could look at something and compute it almost as fast as what a computer is, and sometimes more accurate than a computer can. And it's about her story of doing these numbers, but at the same time being treated like a lesser human being. She has to run across NASA about a half-mile away through the rain and whatever, just so she could use the bathroom, because black people were not allowed to use the same bathrooms.
Right.
And it is powerful stories and really well acted by all 3 actresses. I forget the name.
Taraji P. Henson
yeah.
was Catherine, and she was kind of the lead of this.
She
It was
was
her
the-
story that was at the forefront of the 3.
It's not like they shadowed the other 2. The other 2 stories were extremely important, but yeah, the Katherine G. Johnson story was the header. And also, I think the best acted, I think Olivia Spencer and Janelle Monáe did a really fine, great job, but
Janelle Monáe just
Henson really knocked it
Janelle
out of the
Monáe
park.
leaves me wanting a little bit with her acting. She's
Yeah.
not. I mean, she's very fresh at acting.
Yeah.
And I was watching her act. I felt throughout the movie. Octavia Spencer's incredible. Her and Taraji P. Henson, I thought, are the most just believable actresses in what they do. They just inhabit roles. And Catherine's character I liked quite a bit.
Well, of course, we also have Kevin Costner in there.
Kevin Costner was terrific in
Yeah,
this.
he was. And
Kevin Costner is just, he is made to play roles like this. The sincerity that Kevin Costner carries into his characters is so great.
I was a little bummed that he wasn't playing opposite of Octavia Spencer again.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that
yeah.
was great, but...
You have Jim Parsons as the racist.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a caricature of what a lot of those guys were supposed to be.
Yeah.
That were just like sexist and racist. This is an accepted thing in 1961, and he was not going to let Catherine have any credit or give her any space for what she wanted to do. And I thought his character was was good, but it was so one note. I thought Jim Parsons could have done more with it, and it was so one note throughout the movie of, I'm just the guy who's against her. I'm just going to be the bad guy in this movie.
I liked how he slowly progresses. And, of course, this movie, I mean, he wasn't, yes, he's racist, yes, he's sexist, but it wasn't in your face. It was more like, this is just how it is.
Right. And that was the same with Kirsten Dunst's character, who was, Octavia Spencer's supervisor, where she was like, look, I'm not racist. And she's like, no, I'm sure you believe that.
I love that line.
Really
that was
great.
Awesome.
But it's like the sincerity of like, well, this is just how things run.
Yeah.
This is just how it is. You're not allowed to do that
Yeah.
because of the color of your skin, because of the sex you are, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought that they did a good job of portraying the struggle of both the equal rights for race and sex at this time in 1961. And of course, watching what they do, this is a great period in history. This is one of my favorite periods in all of history because we as a people, we're progressing so fast. Like we're creating, I mean, like they say in here, we're creating the math as we go. They're trying to come up with answers to questions they don't even have yet. Mm-hmm. And like, we need to know. We're doing something that's never been done before. And technology and society were just hurtling down the tracks at this time of technology's coming as this IBM computer. We're going to space. We're creating these things. In society, there's turmoil with race and sex and everything going on, and Martin Luther King and him being shot. There was so much going on. I think this is just such an important time in history. This movie does a good job of representing a chunk of that and telling the story of these three women whose story hasn't been told.
Yeah. And on top of that, making it even though it's all entertaining, they make it extra entertaining with great sound music in the background, some great one-liners or great monologues that were just... this is a very quotable movie. I'm sure 10 years from now, I'm still going to hear some people say some of the things that were in this movie.
I liked a few things. Showing that they're trying to create the math, but even the most simple problems are causing things like measuring the width of a door for this IBM computer. We're NASA, and it's like, oh, the computer won't fit through the door.
Yeah.
Shoot. We got to figure that problem out too. Like everything they were on the cutting edge of everything. We know none of this has been done before, and it's palpable how we're fighting with the Soviets during the space race, and we're behind, and how important it is that we catch up and surpass them. And I like that, and I like that how they were able to tell these three stories together and apart.
Yeah.
I liked how they told it. My one issue with this movie is it felt, if you watch this movie, you would believe that Katherine Jackson did everything for NASA by herself. That Taraji P. Henson, her character,
agree.
While every single other guy in that room either stood and watched her or just went home, and she's the only one at the blackboard at the end of the day. If you watch this and don't know anything else, you go, well, Katherine Jackson did everything for NASA. Yeah. She was responsible for the entire space race that we were on. And I understand you can't tell the story of 100 other guys working there, but it did very much feel like, well, she's the only one doing anything. Everyone else is just standing there watching.
Well, and it was like that with all the characters, and that was also my complaint, too. I believe it's done for the movie part. Like with Mary Jackson and the judge, it seemed like with a short monologue, all of a sudden took a racist, segregated judge who's been on the bench for 20 years with strong beliefs. Yeah. All of a sudden he changes his mind and does the most insane thing for the time.
Yeah, unheard of, right?
I would have liked to have seen probably what was more true to the fact, which was the judge was probably sympathetic and just needed the excuse. You have the Dorothy Vaughan, who pretty much beat out all the people who are trained to put together this IBM, and they're just like, I don't know what to do, and she ends up surpassing them from a book that she got from the library, one book. It's like, well, why would that book be in that library in the first place? And well,
nobody else read it.
Yeah, and same thing with the Katherine G. Johnson, where she felt like, but I feel like they had to do this in order to make the movie seem more powerful and more entertaining.
Absolutely.
If everything was more like, yeah, there's both sides and blah, blah, blah.
It lessens the impact.
It lessens the impact.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this movie, though. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. I liked a lot of the characters. I think Janelle Monáe's, she needs some work, but I enjoyed this. I think Octavia Spencer and Taraji P. Henson especially were really great.
I like Janelle Monáe. I thought she did a great job. That's a
what did you give
this
movie?
I give it a 4.5. I thought it was a great movie. I thought the contrasts between the good and evil were a little extreme, but I understand that's what it was needed to be done in order to make this movie as great as it is, and it is a great movie. Definitely
Go check it out. 2 good movies to start the year. I like that a lot.
And Underworld.
And Underworld. Sure. So really quickly, let's take a look back. We're talking about the space race. We're going to throw back to 1983 for just a terrific space race movie. One of the originals. The Right Stuff came out in 1983 from director Philip Kaufman. It had a who's who cast. It was all about. This is a huge epic movie about the Mercury 7 astronauts. And about really hits on the heroism and the brotherly bonds that these guys went through, and the pressure that everyone was under to beat the Russians. And you have Sam Shepard as Chuck Yeager, you have Scott Glenn as Alan Shepard, Fred Ward as Gus Grissom, Ed Harris as John Glenn, he's phenomenal in this, Dennis Quaid as Gordo Cooper. This movie won 4 Oscars for sound and for editing, and it's so powerful. Showing how the space program is created from whole cloth with these test pilots and these guys who are just Navy pilots, and it just shows how heroes are created, and that these guys are, I think, the last of the great heroes, the last of people that were willing to go into literally the unknown, into an environment that is trying to kill you at every second. Every tiny little mistake, this bolt comes out, you're dead.
Yeah.
And these guys went up there knowing it. I mean, they're test pilots, so they already are facing danger. This, a massive death rate in this program. But to go into the true unknown as the last frontier, guys going into the last frontier, it really shows how amazing these guys are. And it flashes back to Chuck Yeager and shows, he's the one who didn't make it in. He's still out there pushing the boundary as a test pilot.
I like how it also showed the wives at home, and how they weren't really too cool with their husbands being test pilots.
And they do a great job of showing the families, like you say, the wives, the families, and how they work together. When there's a time of uncertainty or a time of fear, that they bond together. The wives, everyone comes together. I love it. I love this movie so much. There's some great performances in here. A lot of really fun performances.
I didn't see the genie. Isn't there supposed to be the genie with the pink lamp and all that?
Is that what it was?
Yeah, with Mr. Healy.
Great soundtrack by The Right Stuff. What is that? That's The Right Stuff. Who's that? New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block. Actually, that was
joke.
one of the things that made me cringe about this movie. Is, the synthesizer, really cool back in the 80s. It does not carry very well into the
I love this movie so much. I love The Right Stuff. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. There's a great Blu-ray that just came out. Go check it out. It's a great historical movie about what really happened during the space race. So. The Right Stuff, the throwback. Let's take a look ahead really quick at what is coming out the weekend of January 20th. We're going to have a bunch of movies coming out. The first one is The Founder, starring Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc, the man who founded, maybe, McDonald's, maybe stole it.
I'm looking forward to this immensely.
As well. You also have Split, a horror movie with James McAvoy as a man with many personalities.
M. Night's been doing a good comeback
Super
so
creepy.
far.
The Resurrection of Gavin Stone is a movie about a guy who's a teen heartthrob who joins a church to become, he wants to win the role as Jesus in their church.
That's the first I've heard of this one.
Do we have Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage. We got that going on. And lastly, a wide release of 20th Century Women, which is now opening in bigger theaters that weekend. Next weekend, we're going to be talking to you about Bye Bye Man. We're going to have Live by Night. We're going to have Patriots Day, Silence. Who knows? A plethora of movies. We'll see about that.
We'd like to thank our sponsors.
Always. We got to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring the show. We do appreciate it. If you would like to find more from us, you can find us on Facebook or Twitter at Real Reviews TV. We'll get you where you need to go. You can also find all of our episodes up on YouTube. Real Reviews, KSUN, KSUN, wonderful channel. Go check that out. You can watch past episodes all on there. But until next week, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.